Emily DeMario is a copywriter at Humanaut over in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Chattanooga, Tennessee is correct. I'm sure you wouldn't think of Chattanooga as home to one of the strongest small agencies in the country, but now you know. Emily is a University of Georgia and Creative Circus alum and is currently in her second year of creating award-winning work at Humanaut. We talk about extracting the blood from Tony Hawk and slathering it on skateboards to sell to the masses, liquid death, and the beauty of being at a small agency. If you're concerned about what I just mentioned, good, but it's all great stuff, I promise. Emily and I have a genuinely smooth and easygoing conversation that applies to our younger audience, either still in college or recently graduated. Emily looks back and tells us what she would have done differently from the start. This episode is supported by Chicago Portfolio School, which is a one-year portfolio school option. To better your break-in chances, visit them at chicagoportfolio.com. Now, Emily kindly formulated a list of recommended resources for aspiring creatives. If you follow us on Instagram at enteringad, you can see hers and 76 other lists of resources all at your disposal. Now, on with the show. This is the Breaking and Entering Advertising Podcast, and as usual, I'm your accomplice, Gino Schellenberger. Kick it, Mikey. Emily DeMario, welcome to the Breaking and Entering Advertising Podcast. This is going to be a lot of fun. Welcome. How are you today?
Hi, I'm doing really good. Thanks so much for having me on.
This is going to be fun. You are a copywriter at Humanaut.
Correct.
So Humanaut, we haven't had anybody on from Humanaut yet, but this is an interesting agency. Would you say it's a smaller agency?
Oh yeah, very, very small.
How many people?
Right now, our creative department has 5 individuals. That is including designers, ACDs, writers, and creative directors.
So 5 people in the creative department. Do you love that? Do you hate that? Is that what you wanted to be at? Tell me about that. That's interesting.
I love it. I love how small we are. We definitely are a little strapped right now. We have a lot of incoming work, so it would be nice to have a couple more bodies in there, but I prefer a much smaller team than a very large creative team.
I feel like you have to. I mean, being like that small team, like I'm sure you enjoy it, but you guys are also, just because you're a small team doesn't mean you guys just produce some great work for the Tony Hawk campaign. What's it called? Liquid Death, the water company?
Liquid Death, Mountain Water, and Tony Hawk. Yeah, they came together for the blood board.
It's so great. Like, that's such a great idea, and it's so on brand and on strategy. I'm sure Liquid Death. It sounds to me like when I was at what's it called? Dave Matthews Band concert, and I'm not the biggest fan of Dave Matthews Band, but I was there and they were serving Liquid Death, and I thought my friends were buying like a weird coffee, like they had like alcohol in it when I first heard of it. Doesn't it seem like a coffee brand when I first heard it? That was what came to mind.
It's funny. They actually have a really large sober following because people feel like they can still go hang out with their friends and still have something that's like alcohol looking, but it's not alcoholic. It's literally just water.
Exactly. And I looked at my friend. I'm like, what do you drink? Like, have a Bud Light. Like, I don't know what you're doing. Like, and then because I thought it was like a weird like craft beer, but it's water and
craft water.
And tell us about the Tony Hawk thing, because this caught a lot of press. This won some. I'm sure it's going to win awards if it hasn't already. But I saw this in Ad Age, Ad Week. I saw it on my email subscriptions that this came up. This Tony Hawk collaborations, but you present it to us because it's such a good idea. I want to hear about it.
Yeah, so this idea came about because Mike Cesario is the creative director and founder of Liquid Death, and he's very good friends with David Littlejohn, who is the creative director and founder of Humanaut. And so we do a lot of work with Liquid Death, and they came to us because they started this ambassador program. And like a bunch of really big celebrities got in on it, like what's his name? What is his name? I can't remember his name, but obviously Tony Hawk is one of them. And so they're like, part of the clause is that they need to make content for us if they're going to be an investor and an ambassador for Liquid Death. And so we got to pitch ideas to Liquid Death for what each of these celebrities could do. And so like we had this big deck, we had all these weird, wild ideas, and that was the winning idea.
Yeah, tell us what the idea was.
So the idea is the Liquid Death blood board, which is Tony Hawk did not read the fine print in his contract, and therefore we own his blood. We can extract it and use it for whatever we want, and we just so happen to want to make a blood board, which we sold out of in 20 minutes. It was actually created, like he got his blood taken, it was screen printed into the board. It sold for $500, and I think they're going for like $3,000 now, maybe more on eBay.
Incredible. But and then the donations, wasn't there donations involved? Like it was for a
good cause? It wasn't like totally just a corporate show project. Like they actually, Tony gave some of the proceeds to like some charities he's involved in, and Liquid Death also gave proceeds away. I think it was like 10 or 5% of the proceeds.
Well, I mean, that's just like a perfect campaign. It's super creative. It aligns with Tony Hawk, kind of like that kind of grungy, like cool, like skateboarder with Liquid Death, like just the names, the brands really kind of align in that persona sense. And then you come up with the creative executions, you donated profits. I mean, just 360 all around the board. Just shows like how many people are on the team. 5 people.
Yeah.
Incredible. And you have to have, I'm sure, a brand that wants to buy into that and is willing to do something super creative like that. So good work to both Humanaut and Liquid Death. That's so impressive.
Thank you. I mean, Liquid Death really is a dream client, probably because like Mike has been very much on our side. Like before he started Liquid Death, he was a creative director. He even worked at Humanaut for like a short while. And so like he really has an understanding of the type of content you need to make to stand out as a brand. And he's not afraid of like doing something wild, like putting real blood in a skateboard. And it was cool. Like it caught Lil Nas X said nah he tweaking about it because he had done a shoe with Nike and put his blood in it. And like that created this extra leg of the campaign that made it even more viral.
Sure. Oh yeah. Yeah. A little earned attention through social. Lil Nas. Love it.
Yeah.
But let's get back to you, because I mean that speaks probably pretty widely upon what Humanaut is. It's a small, powerful, creative agency. I saw it on Ad Age. I saw it on Adweek. I'm sure it's won small agency year awards and stuff like that. But it comes down to the work. The work wins awards, and the people make the work. So, and you've been there for how long?
I've been there for 2 years.
2 years, and it's been a good 2 years. And you moved to Chattanooga, Tennessee, where Humanaut is located. There's one location. I'm correct on that?
Yes, only one. Sweet Chattanooga.
Why Chattanooga? Why not? I've heard of Richmond being an offshoot. Seattle has some cool agencies. Portland, of course, outside of the big hubs. But why Chattanooga?
Because David Littlejohn grew up here, and he didn't want to move it somewhere else. They had like a discussion, like should we open it like New York, and then he just kind of put a stance down that no, it's going to be here in Chattanooga, and if you want to work for Humanaut, you have to move here.
I love that. And it's a lot of his identity is wrapped into the brand. And I mean, nowadays it's digital. Like you can get away with that. Like you can just zoom in from anywhere. So, and that also helps. You can help like compete against those larger agencies even more so now, because you don't have to physically be in New York, Chicago, or LA.
1000%. I mean, over COVID, we were very lucky to grow our team by, I think, a crazy number, like 40%. We have mostly, I'd say probably half and half remote and half live in Chattanooga at this point.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And you like living in Chattanooga? Where were you? Well, to get to your story, you graduated from University of Georgia,
I did.
and now you're living in Chattanooga. I mean, and you've been there for the past 2 years. You enjoyed that move? Is that something you're thinking about doing long term, or is that virtual option still on the table where you can go like work remotely wherever?
I've always wanted to like be a digital nomad, to use
Sure.
that
Live
term,
in a van and
live in a van.
become an influencer.
But uh, yeah, I got pulled here before people knew you could work remote, before the pandemic. And
Mhm.
Humanaut was my dream agency at the time. So when they offered me a position, I was like, fuck yeah, I'm going to go to Chattanooga.
Mhm.
I don't care if it's a small town. And so far, it's been really great living here. I mean, it's got that small town charm. There's not very, like, the restaurants aren't great, but
Mm.
the community is really lovely.
How do you meet friends and like?
I
Did you
am
make friends?
friends with pretty much exclusively Humanaut people. Like,
Right.
my circle and my work life is just like one entity.
Sure. Makes sense. So I'm sure they're great to be around, and they're obviously your friends and your coworkers, so that's great.
Yeah, Humanaut hires really cool people, and we've been lucky in that regard that
Mhm.
everyone pretty much gets along. So
Mhm. So
yeah.
let's kick it back to how you got started in all of this, because we learned about Humanaut. I want to know about how you got into copywriting. Where did this all begin?
This all began um, at the University of Georgia. I was an advertising major, and UGA does not have a creative copywriting or creative advertising track at all. They only go to accounts. So I was there for 4 years, got to the end of my senior year, and had a rep from the creative circus basically tell me, unless I could pull a portfolio together with like someone in my advertising class, that I really didn't stand a chance at getting into creative. And so that was kind of devastating to hear, because I thought that I was just going to waltz into a creative job. I like had no idea how it really worked.
Yeah.
So for like a year outside of UGA, I worked at a pretty like soul sucking marketing job. It was like B2B. It was kind of like email copy, the kind of the very unsexy stuff that no one really wants to do.
Right.
I did that for a year to save up money because I knew I wanted to go to portfolio school.
Nice.
Between Creative Circus and VCU. And then that decision was made really easy because I didn't get into VCU. So I was like,
There
all
you
right,
go.
I'm going to go to the Creative Circus.
Mm-hmm.
So I went
It's
there.
a 2-year program.
Yeah, 2-year program, lived with mom and dad, got to save some money doing that. And I was hired right out of school at Humanaut. So
Okay, so let's break that down. So
yeah,
the rep at UGA when you were an undergrad, your senior year was like, you're probably gonna have to go to portfolio school,
yes.
and that's a shame. So if you're a student now, freshman, sophomore, start looking into portfolio classes. If your school has a creative track, I know University of Illinois had a couple like creative classes that you had to apply to get into, or extracurriculars, or just spec work. Start early so you don't have to be in that
I
position.
want to speak to that really quickly
Go
because
ahead.
I felt like I had to go to portfolio school, and I felt like that was like my own beliefs were a little limiting, that I like wasn't at that time in my life willing to like go find a graphic designer or go talk to other people in the industry to see like what are my other options. I felt like, oh no, I have to go to portfolio school, and so I locked myself into that track. But you know it's not easy to pay $80,000 to go to a 2-year
Mhm.
program, right? Like that's pretty inaccessible for a lot of people, especially if you already have debt from going to a 4-year college.
Of course.
So I would say if you're in that position, your best bet is to like hook up with an artistically minded person in whatever school you're in. There's probably a graphic design program. I would go find one of those students
Yes.
who is looking to go into commercial advertising, and I would start making spec work. And I would go look at the books coming out of VCU, the Creative Circus. There are a couple Chicago portfolio school. They
Mhm.
post them every quarter, brand new books. and you will see the trends. Like, what is a book? What's the level of professionalism you need to get hired? And then I would go on to LinkedIn and find creative directors at the agencies you want to work at, and I would just cold message them. And I feel like most creative directors would take, like, they understand not every kid can go to portfolio school, and they're going to talk to you at the very least, right? So that's what I would have done looking back.
No, I love, that's the best advice. That's what I want this whole podcast to be about, is looking back. What would you change? What would you do differently?
Right.
But so, and I get that sometimes you don't figure out till later in college, like you want to go into copywriting or you want to go in art direction and those portfolio demanded sectors, but you got to start early. Like once you figure it out, like do the spec work. Maybe don't even like some of those. It goes against everything I've said before, but now that I'm thinking about it, like some of those ad clubs, like maybe I'm getting brainwashed, but I feel like some of those ad clubs may not produce or give you the opportunity to create the best work. Like your local, like, I don't know, like nonprofit, or like there's like, they're good companies, but it might not be the most creative briefs. So go maybe on top of those, because those are good to learn how to work in a group. Maybe like give yourself your own, like look up those daily briefs, that like the 1-minute briefs, and do those, because those are meant for creative inspiration.
1000%. And I would say something that I learned from Humanaut that makes you so much better is speed. So like if you're choose a product, choose like a problem to solve for it, and then spend no more than a day like working on it, and make as many ideas for it as you can, and then move on, because the more you iterate, like the better and stronger your ideas will be, versus you taking one problem and just like cranking on it for hours.
Yeah. And I'll speak to like what we say at Chicago here is like at Chicago Portfolio School, we say the same thing. Like if you're like a senior, like, and you think you have a good book, and you probably do have a good book, go out and apply. And then, if you don't get the dream job you want, maybe go work at that marketing agency, like an agency you don't like as much, for a year, save up, and then come back to us if you need us, if you can't do it on your own. Because some people can't really focus that much on their own, or they don't have the resources, or they're too busy working 2 jobs, or whatever the case may be. Then we say, okay, take your time, go do your thing, talk to us if you really need us, and then we'll help you out. And I think the 1 year versus 2 year, we can talk about that, but this is not, I'm not paid to do this right now. So how was your experience though? I mean, you did the thing, you saved up, you worked at the job you didn't really like that much, you saved up, and then you went to Creative Circus, fantastic portfolio school, 2 years. Go check out my interview with Dan Balser if you're listening.
Love Dan.
He's no longer there, but
it was
his legacy remains on. I'm
bad
sure.
announcement.
He was a copywriting advisor, so
he was the copywriting advisor. He shaped just generations of copywriting students and now working professionals.
So tell us about your experience there, because I mean, it teaches you how to become, portfolio school will teach you how to become a great like career, like good at your job in general, not just to create a portfolio, but you need to be good at your job for long-term success. And that's one thing portfolio school will do for you. And Creative Circus, of course, is phenomenal at that. So what were some of those high points at at Creative Circus?
I think something Creative Circus did really well was teach you large thinking, like really teach you the anatomy of a campaign. How do you come to a relevant, striking, sometimes controversial idea that is going to get a lot of hype and views and is going to ultimately do good for your brand and client? And that is a skill that still serves me really well. But a downfall to the circus is that they don't really spend a lot of time on like the everyday stuff that you're going to end up doing, like as a junior straight out, right? Like,
what?
Social stuff, like what is, structuring a social calendar, like coming up with short form content. There's really these like very, very large campaigns. But I think in that environment, like that's a really good muscle to work out, because if you can go big, then you can figure out how to ladder down.
Yeah.
It's hard to like apply an insight to a really interesting idea when you first get there. You don't even know what an idea is. You have no idea what a campaign is. And that's the 2 years just like kind of brings you through this process of slowly figuring out, okay, what is an actually good idea? How do you execute this?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it also, my class, what was really beneficial to me is we were really competitive, which like, some people like might not think that that's really good. At the time, it didn't feel great to be in a really competitive class, but it also meant that everyone had a fire under them. Like every single like teams class or every single time we were presenting, you always wanted to like do better because you saw someone else doing really well. And I think that was really beneficial for me specifically. I know that not every class like has that dynamic, but my class did have that dynamic, and everyone kind of rose to the occasion because of it. And we had a very strong graduating class.
Yeah, a little healthy competition. Sometimes it can get taken out of hand, I'm sure, and
Oh yeah.
you can get emotional, but that's kind of that'll build you up and put some toughness on you. And you can't really, when you look back, I'm sure you really enjoyed it in hindsight. Like sometimes at the moment it can be stressful, I'm sure.
Yeah, I enjoyed portfolio school more than I enjoyed UGA. It was,
Really?
yeah, I mean, I made better friends there. I had more in common with them.
Mm-hmm.
It's just more intimate too. Like you're spending a lot more time there than you would, you know, in college for an intermediate or intro level course. Like you're just, it had more of a grad school vibe to it, which I guess it is
Mm-hmm.
arguably a grad program.
Yeah, it's a grad
Yeah.
program for sure.
But yeah, my experience there was better than at UGA.
I love that because I think people go there later. Like it's not directly after college for the most part. I mean, you get some like recent grads that go directly into portfolio school, but some people, have been in the industry for 2-3 years. They've saved up money. There's maturity in those like portfolio school students, and that is always appreciated and creates for a great environment. So
Right.
you did well there. When did you start? So did you go through like the normal portfolio debut? A recruiter came, and Humanaut saw your portfolio at a review, hired you, and that was that. Was there anything different in that storyline?
Yeah. So I knew I wanted to go to Humanaut around my 7th quarter, which was the second to last at the Creative Circus.
Okay.
And our creative resources manager at the time was like, all right, well, I'll send your book out to them. And she did. And
Hmm.
I heard nothing from them. I was like, well, I guess that's out in the void now and they don't want me. So I'm just going to
Hmm.
continue working on my book and see who else does. So
Right.
I worked on my book through 8th quarter, and I thought I was going to go actually to GSD&M. I had,
Austin.
yes, in Austin. I had an offer for an internship there, and I had friends who worked there, and I thought it was like in the bag. Like I was going to go to Austin. I was going to live with my Austin circus friends, and
Hmm.
it was okay. I am telling this story out of order. I'm going to go back
Hmm.
a
No
couple
worries.
chapters.
Yeah.
So 8th quarter comes around. This is before I get the offer for GSD&M, and
Hmm.
a guy working at Humanaut comes to the portfolio review, looks at my portfolio, and he's like, "Cool, this is nice." And he sends me an email offering to like interview me up in Chattanooga.
Oh, nice.
So I did get to interview with Humanaut, and at the
Yeah.
time I was interviewing actually against my boyfriend for the same position.
No way.
Yeah, so we both go up to Chattanooga and we have this crazy 6-hour interview with like 6 different people from Humanaut and David Littlejohn. And I thought I did like really bad at it. I thought for sure like my boyfriend was gonna get it over me because he had kind
That's
of a crazier
crazy.
portfolio. And so I wrote off Humanaut and got the GSD&M offer. And
You
then
wrote them off like mentally.
mentally,
You
right,
didn't say screw you guys. You just said, okay, I'm probably not gonna get this, but GSD&M is looking good. I'm gonna move on to this now mentally.
that's exactly what happened. But I thought also, you know what? Like, I really want this job. I want this job a lot. So what can I do to stand out above my boyfriend?
This is awesome.
So
Okay.
I painted, this was so fucking extra. I painted everyone who I interviewed with a personalized painting with something from our interview in it because I am also a pretty good illustrator. So I
Wow.
like, made them these personalized like paintings and sent them to every
What
person I interviewed with at
What
Humanaut.
do you mean, like, like, give me an example how you personalize one. I'm very curious from your interview. Like, you've only known them for like 30 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. So like one guy we like went out for tacos and we talked about like Disney World, and so like I did this like really whimsical like taco thing, and another guy we talked about like making cool shit, so then I did like a piece of poop with like sunglasses on, like it was
Okay.
very, yeah. So
Gotcha.
I sent these paintings as,
Like, are they big, like, or just like little?
they were like little tiny watercolor
Okay.
paintings.
Nice. So
um,
not too much time, but you obviously put an effort, like a
I
lot
put
of.
in effort. It wasn't like not the littlest amount of time, but it wasn't like I was sending big canvases. It was like,
Okay. Okay.
like
It wasn't
like
super extra.
right. It was just like a little fun.
No, it's a nice touch. It's a
Yeah,
good touch.
it was a little extra. And so the day before I was already packed and like about to leave for Austin, I get a call from David Littlejohn offering me the job. And
Whoa. So you were ready to go to Austin that for that internship? Like, we call those like job tryouts
yeah,
because they're
yeah,
basically job tryouts. So you were going to your job tryout in Austin.
yes. And I had to call them 24 hours before I was supposed to start and told
Wow.
them that I would not be coming. I went to Human.
Interesting. That's just business sometimes. Like, you can't get hurt. Like, no hard feelings, GSD&M. You're a great agency, but you got the full-time offer, right? That was your junior copywriter role.
It wasn't a full-time offer. It was a freelance to hire offer.
Okay. Well,
But
I mean, that's pretty standard.
yeah, that was totally fine for,
But that is interesting because you had similar offers, but you
yeah,
must have you obviously really like Humanaut over
I did.
GSD&M. What was the reason? Like, why? Like, both are great agencies. Why? What attracted you to what? I was going to ask you before. What even drew you to Humanaut in the first place when you were in Creative Circus?
Um, I just thought they were making the most interesting work out there. I thought the
Okay.
work was clever, but it was presented in a way that was very different than advertising I was used to looking at in
Sure.
school. And
Caught your eye.
I just thought like if I'm going to be doing advertising, this is the advertising I
Was
wanted.
there? Do you remember a specific ad like you probably talked about in your interview process that you really love that you?
Oh yeah, there's this pretty famous old Humana ad called "Save the Bros" that they did for Organic Valley Milk, and it was like this protein milkshake, and they came across this insight that a lot of protein shakes have like a bunch of bad shit in it. So
Mhm.
like all these bros are putting poison into their bodies. So you can save a bro by like giving them Organic Valley,
Love it.
organic, yeah, protein shake. And
Great.
it was really, really cool, funny.
Save the bros.
Save the
Okay.
bros. Yeah.
YouTube it.
Oh yeah.
Okay. I'll have to do that. Cool. So then, okay. So you got the call 24 hours before from what's his name?
David Littlejohn.
David Littlejohn. That's a great name.
Yeah.
It's a kind of funny name. We'll have to have him on soon.
Good
But
cult leader name. Good agency founder name and cult leader name.
sure,
Yeah.
sure. Um, why Humanaut? Why the name Humanaut?
You know, I don't think I've actually talked
That's okay.
to David about that.
It's an interesting name. Okay. Okay. So you took Humanaut as the freelance to hire. So
Yeah.
how long is that freelance to hire experience and how stressful was that?
It was 3 months and it was extremely fucking stressful.
Right. Because it's like a test. Like it is like, you don't know if you're testing them out. They're testing you out. It's just like this whole like first date thing.
For 3 whole months, it was a first date. They tested me out before I even got the freelance to hire, they literally gave me a creative test that took
Sure.
me
What does that mean?
12 hours. It was 5 questions.
What was on it?
One was like, make a case for why or why not a Pop Tart is ravioli. In 150 words, prove that you're human. Like, yeah, it was like
It
weird.
took you how long?
It took me 12 hours.
I would do that so quick, but that's probably why I wouldn't get hired.
No, I spent a lot of time.
What'd you say for the Pop-Tart ravioli question?
I said it. I think I said it was a ravioli.
It's gotta be.
I think it, yeah.
It just looks like a ravioli. Like
It's got all of the ravioli like features.
right.
I think I said ravioli.
That's like is a hot dog a taco?
It's a sandwich. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Right up there.
It's all has to do with the bun. If there's 2 buns, if it's wrapped up. Yeah, you get it.
I get
it. You took 12 hours to answer that question.
I did.
That's awesome. Well, it obviously worked because you got hired. So it was super stressful. You're saying freelance to hire. You're a copywriter. What was that experience like? You said it was super stressful. What was going on? Would you tell us about that, and then how you got hired eventually?
I got hired a very anticlimactic way,
which is good.
Yeah,
that's how you kind of want it. Like, keep everything normal. Sometimes is good.
It was a couple days before my birthday, and couldn't have come early enough though, because I was about to turn 26 and get kicked off my parents' health insurance.
Okay, nice.
And David invited me out for coffee and then asked if I wanted to be full time, and perfect. I said, yeah.
Did you see it coming?
Kind of.
Okay.
Kind of. You know at Humanaut if you're not doing well. So
yeah, I mean, you can't really hide, right? You can't. Everybody sees your work. It's transparent. There's 5 of you, 6 of you. How many are there?
There was even less when I started. There were 3 people.
What happened to your boyfriend? Did he get a job?
He decided to go somewhere else.
Okay. Out of the relationship or still in the relationship?
We are out of the relationship.
Okay. Then we'll move on from there. Well, good thing you beat him out. That's awesome. Okay. So then you got hired at Humanaut. What's been your favorite work that you've been a part of, that you're really proud of?
Yeah, obviously this liquid death stuff is incredible and like career changing, and definitely the most viral thing I've ever worked on. But there was this one project that I got to do that was pretty meaningful and cool. We got, what are they called? The Live Project contacted us, and they deal with like teen suicide and suicide prevention, and they had made this short film about this sister that had killed herself, and her family was very heavily involved in the organization. And they came to us with like almost an impossible brief. They were like, we want to make a game that opens up dialogue about suicide and helps discuss mental health. And we're like, a game. So we're like
an app or like a board game?
Like a board game.
Okay.
And so that was really difficult to be like, how do we make a game that isn't like making fun of this topic, that isn't right, that isn't in bad taste.
Tread lightly.
Very lightly. And we ended up making this very cool game called The Game That Goes There. And
what was it?
It's called The Game That Goes There.
The Game That Goes There, okay.
The Game That Goes There. And essentially there's like 3 levels of going there. And each card just asks you something very provocative and like deep, and you're supposed to write down your answer on a pad of paper, and all your friends are supposed to guess like what answer is yours. And is this kind of cool game that facilitates conversation. But something really interesting that came out of that is Tom Felton from Harry Potter, he was Draco, fell in love with our game and kind of became an unofficial ambassador for it, and he like carries around his favorite card in his wallet.
What's his favorite card?
He won't tell us.
Wow.
It is a secret.
Despite him being like Slytherin, and
I know.
it's awesome though. So I'm sure that got a lot of attention, and he was able to promote that as well.
Yeah, it was a very cool project to work on.
Yeah, meaningful, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And you took what seemed to be an impossible brief, and you were able to make something really beneficial and effective and creative. So I love it.
Yeah.
Nice. Anything interesting about being a copywriter at a small agency where you have to, I'm sure you have to juggle some art direction as well, being, maybe some strategy, I'm sure. Do you have to do a lot of different roles being at a small agency?
You would think so, but actually, no. We have pretty robust. We're small, but we have a large strategy department,
Mm,
and we also have some really talented designers and art directors who handle all of the design stuff. So the
love
writers
it.
are really like truly just concepting and writing. It is a
Wow.
very copywriter um, benefiting agency. It is built
Wow.
for copywriters.
Incredible. That's like the dream. You just get to focus on what you need to do and do it well, and you're in an environment that promotes that. I love it. What how many projects could you be juggling at one time?
Oh man, right now we're kind of at our threshold.
Right. You mentioned that earlier, yeah. Couple.
We're doing 4 projects.
Okay.
Something that's interesting about Humanaut is we don't do copywriter art director pairings.
Okay.
We do like everyone gets to work on everything and you don't have a partner, so you collaborate. Like we do writers rooms.
Oh, okay. So you break up by just all the copywriters sit around?
Yeah. And the designers too. Everyone gets to throw in during the idea phase, and then like as the concept comes together, a writer will then handle it through to the end of the edit or whatever the execution for the campaign is. But in the
Oh.
beginning, it is a very hands-on deck collaborative experience.
How many strategists do you have?
We have
Over under 10?
under 10.
Okay. And then how many art directors?
We have
Over under 10?
way under 2.
Oh.
2 art
They're probably
directors.
really good though.
They're very good.
Yeah.
2 art directors, 2 designers.
What about like production?
We have an entire in-house production agency.
Oh, okay. What's that called? Is that just within Humanaut?
It's just within Humanaut.
Okay. Yeah, you got to create the stuff. You got to execute.
Exactly.
And then how many account directors?
Under 10.
Okay. Interesting. I like this agency.
That's very cool. Yeah. I mean, honestly, I think every agency should have an in-house production team. It is truly like the magic to being as productive as we are and punching
Interesting.
above our
Quick, nimble, can change.
super quick. I
Be
mean,
part of the process. Save
there,
money.
there have been instances where like we've gone and preemptively made something for the client that hasn't even been sold yet. Like we've
Oh, you're just so proactive, I'm sure.
yeah, and then they see it and they love it because it's pretty much a done product, and they buy it.
And can you go in the office, or is it forced work from home at the moment?
No, we are allowed to go into the office. It's not mandatory, but it's like a as needed basis.
Sure.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. And then any other like big advice to like copywriters out there that we didn't get to cover that you want to just get out there to our listeners that are looking to be in copywriting or looking to join a creative agency?
Yeah. I would really, really advise new writers to look at mid to small level agencies first and find the best one, making the coolest work that you like, that resonates with what you want to do, and try your fucking hardest to get into that agency. Because if you start small as a junior, you get given a lot greater opportunities. You're not being bogged down doing like even widen people, their juniors are doing social and they have the widen name behind them, but they're still, like they're doing stuff that is smaller. And if you go to a smaller to mid-sized agency, the opportunities you get to work on larger campaigns are just bigger and more, they come to you more often.
Greater opportunities, yeah.
And I've seen a lot of success with my peers who have gotten to like medium-sized agencies over very large agencies. And also large agencies, not to knock them, they're making like a lot of great work is coming out of them. But there's a lot of structure. There's a lot of like, obstacles to get work out the door. And also just the pitch system.
Yeah, it's a slower process.
It's slower. And, like if you can find a project-based agency that isn't like an agency of record for anyone, I feel like you could get a lot of really good work early.
Any other ones on your mind that you noticed you want to shout out?
Yeah. Preacher's doing really cool work.
And they're in Austin.
Yeah, Barrett SF is doing really awesome.
Which one?
Barrett SF out in San Francisco.
Barrett.
I've
never heard of that. Interesting.
Yeah, you should hit up some people at Barrett. And see
if you got friends there or you know anybody, let me know.
Yeah, totally.
Mischief is good.
Mischief.
Yeah.
Walrus is doing some funky stuff.
Where are they at?
They're in New York, I believe.
Okay.
Yep.
Cool. Yeah, this has been great. I think that's all we need to cover. Is there anything else we're missing out on?
No. I think it's been a nice, comprehensive, leisurely chat.
That's how it should be. And if anybody wants, any of our listeners want to reach out, can they do that? And how can they do that?
Yeah, absolutely. Can email me at my personal email if you want, which is emilydemario15@gmail.com.
Nice. Well, I'll put your portfolio and our link on Instagram at entering ad, and then the resources that you sent over, you got to go to our Instagram at entering ad to find those. So that's all I got. Emily, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you.
Did you hear anything on this episode about a job you'd like to have someday, soon, in advertising, strategy, design, the kind of job where you use your brain and your creativity? If you did, chances are a portfolio can really help you get that job. That's where Chicago Portfolio School comes in. They have programs and classes that help you show off your thinking and get you the job you want. So visit them at chicagoportfolio.com. And if you drop my name, Gino, into the chat box, they'll send you more info and a cool Sharpie. Or just some more info. You can decide that. Thanks. Thank you all for listening to this entire episode of the Breaking and Entering Advertising podcast. I hope you enjoyed this week's guest. Make sure you go and connect with them on LinkedIn. Tell them that Breaking and Entering sent you. Now, thank you to Mikey Malarkey, our audio technician, and Buchun Zhang, our creative director, as well as the student team from the Midnight Oil Agency at the University of Illinois. Can't do it without you all. Thank you very much. We will see you all next week with another amazing guest.